The Raptors took care of business against a bad team. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I was getting meetings right in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form.
Exactly.
Is the editing.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I thought they would be doing against the Sacramento Kings, but I guess second time is the charm. They beat the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that was actively trying to lose. There was some good in this, though, as the Raptors head into an all-important stretch against some good teams. Thought this was a great process game from Brandon Ingram, who was working off of the ball more often. So you see here a pin down from RJ Barrett, and he's going to work off this dribble handoff, and that creates a two-man game between him and Jakob Poeltl, and boom. I love his decision-making here. Of course, he could settle into this mid-range jump shot. He's been doing it all season, but Jakob Poeltl is wide open on the roll. Hit your roller, reward your big man for the roll finish. Again, more off-ball Brandon Ingram curling to the basket here off of the pin down from Jakob Poeltl. They flow into a pick and roll right away, and boom, Brandon with the beautiful pass to Jakob for the finish. I thought BI's decision making even in transition was good today. Of course he could have hit Scotty Barnes here, leaking into the middle or cutting to the middle of the basket, but he finds CMB, quick decision, quick finish. This time 2 pin downs for Brandon Ingram, so boom, boom, and he is going to come off of this right now and then flow into a flare screen. So they flare out for him. CMB sets a flare for him. And now he just goes one-on-one, attacks quickly, and gets into his mid-range jump shot. So still opportunities for him to isolate. This is a way to get him the ball. And truthfully, I would like for them to not spend 20 seconds to do so. But ultimately, his quick decision-making is what is the highlight here. Similar action here. So pin down for Brandon Ingram, curling off of a Jakob Poeltl dribble handoff, and again, just drives all the way to the hoop and finish. And that is good process by Brandon Ingram. Everybody has got on me over the last couple weeks for being harsh about Brandon Ingram and his process, and it's truthfully because the Raptors just quite frankly need him to be better. And I think part of that is just quick decision-making, being faster with the ball. Admittedly, this was against the Memphis Grizzlies. As we welcome you inside the film room, the Raptors beat the Grizzlies 128-96. Yeah, man, they took care of business, and they took care of business for the majority of this game. It wasn't easy. I wouldn't say it was easy. The second half of the game was definitely easy. The final score looks like it was easy. But the first quarter, the Grizzlies put up a fight. Started the second quarter, the Grizzlies put up a fight, and then eventually the Raptors put them away. I thought turnovers really limited the Raptors, especially to start this game. They cleaned that up. Jamal Shed had a really good game. Jacoby Walter finished off with a really good game. The Raptors beat the Grizzlies and took care of business tonight. There's not that many takeaways when you beat a team that is actively trying to lose in the Grizzlies, and a team that, also is basically rostering a G League team. Cedric Coward, I'm a huge fan of Cedric Coward. I think he has all-star and all-NBA potential. But outside of that, the other guy that I could think would be interesting is Taylor Hendricks. I think he's cool. He only played 26 minutes in this game. Cam Spencer didn't even play. Walter Clayton didn't even play in this game. It was basically the Grizzlies G League lineup out there. It was the Memphis hustle, if you will. And so the Raptors should have taken care of business here. They better beat this team, and beat them handedly. They did. And so, you look up and down the box score for the Raptors. RJ Barrett was phenomenal as a scorer for this team. And truthfully, he continues to be phenomenal. You look at RJ's numbers over the course of this season, and maybe it's not the best compared to his first 2 years with the Raptors, but he's averaging 19 points on 50% shooting from the field, 34% from three, and 70% from the free throw line, which is actually a best for him as a Toronto Raptor. The assist numbers are down, but that's just because the usage is also down as well. He has been a relatively proficient scorer for them, and I think he's been a very important part for what the Raptors need. He does a great job against teams that allow him to get to the hoop. Now, how does he do that against good teams and good competition? I think we've seen him show up in moments this season. Like, I think we've seen him have pretty big games against some really good teams this year. It's just how the Raptors put it together as a whole. RJ Barrett, score, very, very good score for the Raptors. A guy who they consistently rely on to score, especially when Emmanuel Quickley isn't in the lineup right now. And they need Quick. Like the three-point shooting, the pull-up three-point shooting, the secondary creation, all of that stuff is so evident. And hopefully over this next stretch where the Raptors play the Boston Celtics, the Miami Heat twice, the New York Knicks, and then the Brooklyn Nets to finish off the year, when seeding matters so much, hopefully Emmanuel Quickley is available because I think IQ, for the most part, has had a pretty good season, relative to like what the expectations were for him coming in. And I know he's probably not playing up to his contract, if you will. But I do think IQ is having a pretty good season. I think he's like kind of fulfilling his duties here for what the Raptors require of him. Of course, you would like for him to continue taking steps as a playmaker, etc. But the Raptors desperately need that guy. They need him to be a creator. And so more of the scoring load is on RJ Barrett. More of the scoring load is on Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram, but also some of their bench guys to step up. And we'll talk about Collin Murray-Boyles in a second. I also thought this was a really good Jacoby Walter game, even though Jacoby was 2 of 9 from the field, had 7 points. He did have 8 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2 steals, but Jacoby just finds ways to impact the game in a meaningful way, and he was a plus 39 in this game. Very, very good defense all throughout. I thought he did a great job of like screening, assisting, and kind of moving around to get guys openings. Overall, he just looks like a guy who fits into what the Raptors need, as we've talked about all season. But the thing that jumped out to me almost immediately in this game was how much pop Brandon Ingram had, like how quick he was moving out there. And I wonder if the quote unquote time off, if you will, he got the night off against the Sacramento Kings, if that helped him get some of his juice back, because boy, did he look spry. And he looked like he was engaged. He was moving the ball quickly. Perhaps, I'm not necessarily sure what it is, but he just looked like he was moving faster out there. He looked like he was making quicker decisions. And Brandon Ingram, when he's making quick decisions like that, is a really, really tough cover because, boy, is he such a talented scorer. And I've always said that he's an underappreciated playmaker. Leaning into that, especially within this Raptors system, will allow him and the Raptors to thrive. So hopefully this is the start of a really strong end to the season for Brandon Ingram as he continues to pop as a playmaker. I do like that they were incorporating more off-ball and off of screen actions for him to get him easier opportunities instead of flattening out the floor and making him go ISO or making him initiate and pick and roll actions. Like get him moving before he catches the ball. I think that's actually a really key part for BI. So hopefully they do that. The other guy I wanted to talk about is Collin Murray-Boyles because CMB now has had 10 plus points in 4 of his last 5 games. He's had 3 straight games of 14 plus points. He poured in 19 points tonight on 7 of 10 shooting. I like, for the most part, like I thought CMB actually truthfully to start this game was struggling. And I texted someone and I said, man, opposable thumbs are so important. And it's because you could see how hard it is for him to catch the ball the way that he could usually catch a ball. If you watch him in college, if you watch him even to start this year before he hurt his thumb, the way that he was catching the ball in traffic was a lot easier than it is now, where it feels like he has to have 2 hands on the ball because this one thumb is inhibiting him from kind of clenching it. If you've ever had to grip a basketball, you really need your thumb to do a lot of the work. And so his grip strength might not be at 100%, especially with all that bandage over the thumb. But I do think CMB is finding a way around that. And the Raptors are imploring him to be more aggressive, especially against, again, the G League Grizzlies tonight. CMB was asked to be more aggressive. He was looking for a shot more often. He was creating off the bounce, which was interesting. And I think it's worth at least breaking down. So early seal work for CMB. This is something that the Raptors did with Pascal Siakam, something they do with Scotty Barnes, and it's to get their big men easier looks. And it's because what they want to do is get early opportunities. And CMB does a great job of hunting out the mismatch, boom, and the dunk. This time they run a dribble handoff with CMB and Brandon Ingram. He just keeps it, so a DHO keep, goes one-on-one, and then attacks. Really nice creation there from CMB, right? A keeper play allows him to get a split-second advantage against his defender. Now he's going one-on-one. Now the two-man game with him and Jacoby Walter, again off of a dribble handoff, flows into a pick and roll. He slips this. Jacoby with the really nice pass, and CMB once again with the dunk. Also dunking the ball more. Also finishing through contact. So pick and roll here. He slips into space. And of course, a lot of the time this year, he would be hitting this corner pass immediately. I think some people noted the lack of aggression for him, but he just fights through the contact and finishes. And later in the game, garbage time here. Let's get CMB some opportunities to create. Mid-post area against Cedric Coward, one-on-one. Going up against another good rookie. Settles into the floater. And that is some good Collin Murray-Boyles, folks. That is what I would like to see moving forward. And, a part of, let me actually pull up this quote Sampson brought up in the tweet that I had, because I tweeted about Collin Murray-Boyles having 3 straight games of 14-plus points, and Sampson said, CMB told me the other night that a lot of how he's played this year has been about fit, just being, quote-unquote, just being versatile in the sense of being able to play with everybody. That's the biggest thing. So I can be on the court with Yak to make me as usable as possible. And I think that's very telling to how the Raptors have tried to use him. We haven't seen that many Yak CMB minutes, of course, for a lack of spacing, but ultimately how aggressive he is as a scorer and how the Raptors utilize their space and work him in actions with shooters is going to be essential to his long-term future on this team next to another non-shooter or inefficient shooter in Scotty Barnes. How does that pairing work together? Because they clearly work together defensively. They had an incredible defensive rating when those two guys were on the floor together. They switch a bunch. They are tenacious. Their hands are active. I can go on and describe how incredible Collin Murray-Boyles and Scotty Barnes are defensively together. But offensively, how do you make those two fit? And CMB, like Scotty, is good at making plays. I think he's a pretty good short roll passer. And you have to be a threat offensively to be able to work in that short roll area. And I think that's something that he's noticed. I think that's something the Raptors coaching staff has noticed. And of course, as we're heading into the final stretch of the season, this is only the beginning of what we'll see from Collin Murray-Boyles. He's headed into a very important summer where I'm sure he will work on his jump shot and try to fine-tune different areas of his game offensively. But it's been a very good season for Collin Murray-Boyles. I don't know if the injuries hurt his case for an all-rookie spot. I personally think he should be, at the very least, all-rookie second team. This is, Trey has mentioned in the past, Joe Wolfond has mentioned in the past. I agree with it that he probably is the best rookie defender in franchise history. Two guys I can think of are Marcus Camby was incredible defensively coming out. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was a child. I was a baby. I was watching Barney when Marcus Camby was playing for the Toronto Raptors. So I don't know off of knowing. I know off of stats. I know off of watching a random NBA TV game here and there. But from what I remember, Marcus Camby was a great rookie defender. OG Anunoby is another guy that comes to mind in terms of rookie defenders for this team. But Collin Murray-Boyles feels like a real guy defensively, a guy who can be an all-defense level player eventually. That's how good he is. How can he improve and stay on the floor offensively? Very big question. But ultimately, he's shown how he can do that over this final stretch. He's also important to the playoff run for the Raptors. And how effective he is in the playoffs might be a little bit telling here as to how they can use him moving forward. I think defenders like that innately have an ability to stay on the floor on defense in the playoffs, particularly because you need good defenders who can lock up, who can get you a stop on any given possession, and CMB can do that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Raptors take care of business against the Memphis Grizzlies. They now head into a tough stretch. And, of course, they stay in 7th tonight after everybody else in that middle of the pack of the Eastern Conference also won. The Hornets won, the Sixers won, the Hawks won, the Knicks won, the Celtics won, the Magic won. It was a winning affair for the Eastern Conference. Now, the Raptors play the Celtics on Sunday. The Sixers play the Spurs on Saturday, which is they play the Pistons on Saturday. That's an all-important game. If the Sixers lose against the Pistons, then the Raptors have a chance to jump up to 6. And also, obviously, the Hawks are heading into a really tough stretch as well. So still a lot of basketball left to be played. Still a few games out there to watch as well. But we'll see what happens, man. We'll see where the Raptors land. We're only a week away, folks. We've made it all the way here. And we appreciate you guys tapping in for Raptors Republic. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate you tapping in. We'll see you next time. Peace out.